Well, hello again, and welcome to the last chapter of our textbook, chapter 12. It's about persuasion. And, I've heard many people say that, well, you can't persuade me to do something I don't want to do. Well, they're probably right. And a lot of times we persuade ourselves. When the alarm clock goes off in the morning and am I going to hit snooze or am I going to get up? I'm going to hit snooze. Or, when you and your friends are together and let's go get lunch. Well, what do you want? I don't know. I want pizza. Well, I don't want pizza. I want Subway. Well, I don't want Subway. I want so and so. At some point in time, you're going to be persuading the other people, or they're going to be persuading you what to go get for lunch. And it may not matter to you. What I always hate is when my wife says, let's go get lunch. Okay, what do you want? It don't matter to me. And I said, okay, let's get pizza. I don't want pizza. Well, evidently it did matter. But sometimes it really doesn't matter. Now, persuasion is altering or modifying a person's attitudes or beliefs. Beliefs are much more strongly held. They are much harder to persuade and change. And we need to be ethical persuaders. There's a guy that did some work on my dad's house, and on his business card said, God is my silent partner. And so my dad trusted the guy because he had that on his card, and the guy did a lousy job. So he used religion and the false pretense that he was a good man because he had that on his card to persuade my dad to hire him to do the job. Now, there's different ways we can persuade somebody. There's questions of policy. What are the laws? What are the regulations that we have to deal with? One time when I was an undergrad, I used questions of policy to persuade a parking issue. See, they had the handicap park spots up front, and then the teacher spots, and then they have the student spots. So a student with a handicap permit could park in handicap parking. Theoretically, they need it. But if all the handicap spots were full, they had to park all the way back in student parking. And so, my policy was that the handicap permit is designed to give them easier access because of difficulty they have in walking or whatever. Then they should be allowed to park in the faculty lot. Well, some of the faculty didn't like that because they don't want to park either further back than they have to. But my argument was, the law is they're eligible for a handicap spot, and you have handicap spots, but when they're full, you make them go all the way back there. It could be a question of value. Good or bad, moral or immoral. What do you value this particular thing to be? What are your values about it? It could be a question of fact. For example, if asked in class, which I like to do, I will ask students, who was the first president? And 99.99999% of them will say George Washington. Well, in reality, John Hanson was the first president. Didn't know that, did you? When the United States declared its independence and the Continental Congress elected a president to run the country while we were fighting for our freedom. Once we gained our freedom, George Washington was the first elected president of the United States, but John Hanson was the first president we had when we declared our independence. And actually, I think there was about 8 or 10 of them. You could argue by example, inductive reasoning. Very evident in the last election that voters changed the election, especially in the state of Georgia, where it went from Republican dominant to Democrat dominant, because the voters in the urban areas got out and voted, and they changed the election. You could argue by analogy. This is like that. Well, what would something be? How many of you know what rugby is? Can't see any hands raised, unfortunately. It's a question I like to ask in class. Generally, I get one or two that go, yeah, I know what it is. But most people don't because it's not a popular sport here in the United States. But I could tell you that rugby is like football. The ball's shaped the same, and you bang into one another a lot. So it could be an example or an analogy. You could argue by definition. One of the examples in the book is gay marriage, although I just prefer to use the term marriage because I see marriage as a union between two people. I don't see the gender thing in it. But that's me. And so if you want to argue by definition, you need to make sure that you define what you're talking about. You can argue by relationship. For example, global warming. Well, many people say it's not, it's true, it's false, all this, all kinds of arguments about it. But scientifically, the scientists are saying that the Earth is warming. The waters in the Atlantic is getting warmer, therefore we're having more frequent and more powerful hurricanes. If you're going to argue by relationship, you have to make sure that it's causation you're looking at and not correlation. The example I use is Vern's walking down the street, the car backfires, he has a heart attack and dies. Well, the car backfiring didn't cause a heart attack. Me not running, not doing PE, and eating lousy after I retired and gaining weight, that's what caused it. It may have happened at the same time. So it correlated, but it wasn't causation. And you can use different strategies to persuade people. One thing I want you to understand in this process is sometimes people are going to have false paths they take you down. As we talked about in an earlier thing about earlier chapter about red herrings. They're going to make an argument that's not true, but they're going to make it sound true. And one of the one I like to use in class is love is blind, God is love, Vern is blind, therefore Vern is I'm not God, okay? Never did I say I was, never did I pretend to be, but that's the correlation that some people go down, and you've got to make sure that you don't go down that false path when you're trying to persuade us of something. And you may not persuade us to do something right away. It might take a long time. Going back to the marriage example, for years it has been, seeds have been planted and saying it's okay this, it's okay that. Some people still say it's not okay. That's their prerogative. Believe what you want to believe. But many people did not change their opinion overnight. It took them years of hearing different messages related to it. So when you were trying to persuade us, realize that you may only be planting a seed. You may not persuade us to actually do something. But that's okay. You need to make sure you provide enough evidence. Where's my mouse at? There it is. Lost it again. You're not going to persuade us to do something if you tell us this. We have to have evidence to believe you. Ask your audience to suspend judgment for a moment. And you do that every time you watch a television show. You suspend judgment. You know it's not real, but you're watching it anyway. When we are trying to persuade somebody to do something, if they're stand fast to their beliefs, their judgment, nope, 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 you're not going to persuade them. And make sure that you explain to them that at some point in time, we could probably just agree to disagree, but I would like you to hear me out. Suspend judgment enough to hear me out, and I'll suspend judgment enough to hear you out. And in that process, we're able to better understand where they're coming from. You can demonstrate a cost benefit. If you're trying to persuade them to do something that will benefit them in the long run, you can cost benefit. And it doesn't have to be monetary cost benefit, but that's an easy way to explain it. When they wanted to put the white water rafting in Columbus, one of their arguments was that for every person on the river, there'll be 10 people on the bank watching them. Those 10 people on the bank are buying sodas, buying coffee, buying wine, sitting out there watching them, going to your stores. It will benefit you because compared to the cost, it's going to come out of your pocket. Seek micro changes. Like I said earlier, you don't really change somebody completely in one setting. Those of you that are religious that may have gone to 1,000 different religious events before you decided to commit yourself. But it was a little bit each time. The social judgment theory talks about a few different things. One of them is latitude of acceptance. If we were talking about marriage, from yes to no, whatever, spread it out, and you believe in this little bit, your latitude of acceptance is just a little bit beyond that. Okay, I'll accept this, but I won't accept that. Latitude of rejection is all the spot that you say, okay, I don't believe any of that. I don't agree with that. No way. And then in the middle somewhere, there's a latitude of non-commitment. It's not that you accept it, but you don't reject it. What we're trying to do in persuasion is to move somebody along that continuum, expand their latitude of acceptance, reduce their latitude of rejection, maybe expand their latitude of non-commitment. The elaboration likelihood model says there's basically two ways that we make decisions when we're persuaded. One of them is the central thought processing, and one of them is extraneous. What I like to use an example for this is when I bought my truck. It was in the thought process thing. Okay, this is how much it's going to cost me. Right now, I'm not paying anything for a vehicle. My insurance is going to go up this much. My gas mileage is going to be this much better or this much worse. My comfort is going to be this much better or this much worse. The amount of money that I'm spending on repairs is going to be this much less. I thought everything out. The peripheral part is like when I go to Walmart and my wife says, get some laundry detergent. I go get Gain. Why do I get Gain? I don't know. That's what she gets. I'm not thinking about it. It's in my periphery. That's just what she does. When I changed oil the other day in my lawnmower, I took the filter off, threw it away, took a new filter, put oil on the rim, put it on there. My daughter said, why'd you do that? And I said, because my daddy always did. I had to think about it, and it provides a better seal when you put it on there so you don't get any leaks around an oil filter. But it wasn't, in my thought process of why I'm doing it. It was in the periphery. You like this particular sports figure or actor or actress, and they are on TV hawking something. You might be persuaded, well, I like that person. I trust him. He's one of my heroes. She's fantastic. You don't think about it. You don't go through the central process. You just do it. Organizing your presentation. The thing about it, and I spoke about this in informative speaking as well, you want your presentation to be organized so we can understand it and we can follow. The book talks about two particular ways to organize: problem, cause, and solution. Problem is X, Y caused it, and Z is what we have to do to fix it. If you lay it out like that, then we can follow and understand. Problem on main campus is parking is terrible. What causes it? Nowadays, everybody drives. How can we fix it? Well, University of Southern Miss, faculty paid $600 a year for their parking permit. And when students parked in faculty parking, they got all bent out of shape. Maybe we could say that if you live in the dorm, you don't need to drive. I don't know. What solution would you come up with to fix the parking on campus? The other one is Monroe's motivation sequence. This old guy named Monroe, he came up with these 5 things you need to do to persuade somebody. First thing you got to do is get their attention. And then just in informative speaking, you have an attention getter. You have an attention getter in persuasive speaking. The main difference is the last part of this. So what are you going to do to get our attention? Are you going to quote some outrageous statistic that freaks everybody out? More men are killed by lightning than women. I got that off of the NOAA website. And they had all these charts and everything else, and it turns out, and don't take this wrong, guys, but it turns out that men ain't as smart as women. That's why we're killed by lightning more. Because when guys are out golfing, they stay out and play it out. When guys are out playing ball, they stay out and play it out. When a guy's going fishing or hunting, I'm going. And women don't get out into bad weather and do those things as much as men do. Therefore, more men are killed by lightning than women, because we put ourselves in those positions. You're going to have to show them a need for a change. Well, let's say that we're talking about a no-kill animal shelter in Columbus, Georgia. You know, have you ever gone on the river walk and there was these feral cats out there and with fleas and everything else, and you were afraid they were going to bite your little brother or little sister or your child? Because the kid wants to, hey, look at the kitty, I want to go play with it. Well, we need to fix this problem because the animals did not ask to be brought into this world. What can we do to fix it? Well, we could charge all pet owners a license fee and use that money to support a no-kill shelter. That's satisfaction. How can we satisfy it? Visualize it. Wouldn't it be much nicer to be picnicking out on the river walk and not have to worry about all these feral animals? Just, it'd be so much more comfortable. We wouldn't have to worry about getting bit by something. Because we're not going out there to worry. We're going out there to have a good time. And finally, a call to action. What I'd like you to do is call your city councilman or woman and tell them that we need to have this. What I'd like you to do is research this. Do some reading on your own. Find out more about it so you're better prepared to discuss it and argue about it. What I'd like you to do is donate money to whatever humane society. That's a call to action. That's about it. The biggest difference between persuasive and informative is the call to action. Your intent as a speaker is to get us to do something. Now, we've all had our problems with this. We've all struggled with this. But it's okay. Make your best shot. Make a recording of it. Remember, this is virtual speaking more or less than public speaking. If you want to redo it a couple of times till you get it right. What I don't like is when I get edited videos. Because, you know, they said, and they stopped it, and they cut it out. And there's this jerk in a video. It doesn't make for an appetizing video. Unless you're a professional at editing stuff, don't even go that route. Give me your best shot. Make a video. Persuade me to do something. You have my phone number. You have my email address. Feel free to contact me if you need me. Have a great day. It's been a wonderful pleasure working with you. I would have preferred it to have been in person, I really would have. In your future escapades as a student. If you've got to make a presentation and you're banging your head on the wall and you got some questions, feel free to contact me. You got my email address. I'll be happy to help because that's what I'm here for. And more than anything else, believe in yourself because I do. Have a great day, folks. Bye.